Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Adventures. And today we're going to be doing, believe it or not, part 14 of our Jurassic World Evolution Accurate Dinosaur Mod Collection, where we take a look at different mods and other things that try to make the animals of Jurassic World look more like their fossil counterparts. So today we got some pretty cool animals today. I'm really excited to get through this one. And let's get started. So first up we got Isabellasaurus, or however you pronounce it. What's cool is that these are all new species, so why not? So let's have a look. So this is a pretty cool little dinosaur, isn't it? Wouldn't you agree? So this is Isabellasaurus. And what's really weird about this guy, you think he looks like, he looks like something like a Drysaurus or another basal ornithopod or ornithoskin. And that's what a lot of people thought. They're like, But then they took a look and realized its skull is very similar to Stegosaurus. So this is considered a very basal thyreophorid, or Stegosaur. So this little guy is the great-great-granddaddy to animals like Stegosaurus and Kentrosaurus, Gigantospinosaurus, and all the other stegosaurs in the game. So that's pretty cool. So this guy was described in 2017, and the species is Isabellasaurus molliensis. And this guy got pretty big. This guy got to about 5 to 6 meters long, is estimated. And it has teeth that are similar to modern iguanid lizards that suggest that it may have a diet of both plant and animals, so omnivore. But the fossil itself has preserved stomach, and it really only shows the gut contents of berries and stuff, and nothing really to rule omnivory, since it's mainly just berries and stuff. But maybe just the animal just didn't eat anything animal related for a while. But it seems like this guy was eating berries and other seeds, which makes sense since it may not have had quite the gut ready to digest like things like cellulose and stuff, what a lot of larger herbivores have. This is from the early Jurassic, so it's probably evolving a lot of the adaptations necessary for being a big herbivore. But I think it's still a pretty cool boy. So, and we can see this, the evolution. We can see it's like this is early Thyreophora or Stegosaur. It still blows my mind that how dinosaurs change over time. Like this guy's gonna be. Remember, there's the great-great-granddaddy of Stegosaurus, so it's like, wow. It's amazing how evolution changes animals over time. And you can see how, and you can actually kind of see it. If you look at the skull, you can see that it's very vaguely Stegosaur. Now you have no grace. So I think it better be time to move on to the next animal. So the next animal, we're going to the late Cretaceous of Romania. We have got the Zalmoxes. Okay, so let's get that. Oh, no, wrong one. There we are. So this is Zalmoxes. I'm trying to figure out the last name. Zalmoxes robustus. So this guy lived in the late Cretaceous, like the very late Cretaceous, the Maastrichtian of Romania. And it's a very small Rhabdodont, or however you pronounce it, Rhabdodontid, or something like that. So like a really weird little family of little things like Rhabdodon and Macrolidon. What's really interesting is that this guy was kind of like really robust and small compared to his relatives, and believe it was living on the island of Hadsing, which was in the late Cretaceous. Romania was pretty much an island. So this guy is believed to have insular dwarfism, which is a process that a lot of animals go through. like elephants, dinosaurs, of course, even humans with Homo floresiensis, believed to have got smaller due to the smaller resources and no need for protection against large predators on these isolated islands. But if you guys know a bit about Hetzig, there were some big predators like Hapsogopteryx, and there were other big animals that you don't want to worry about. These guys are about 2.5 meters long. That's one of the specimens found. And the subadult, early juvenile was about 1.2 meters long, and they kind of ranged from 2 to 2.5 meters long. And sadly, they don't really have a complete skull or anything, but we know that there's quite a bit of variation within the species and all that. We have a couple species and stuff described. I still think he's a very cool boy. So these guys, we also know their diet. They believe that, looking at diets and stuff, they mainly ate like horsetails, angiosperms, and ferns and things like that. So kind of softer foods. So kind of did okay. Clearly doing alright. I really love this pattern. I really like the pattern on this guy. Like this bottled pattern on it. So yeah, I think this guy's pretty cool. Now we get to move on to the next one. And believe it or not, this guy's from the same place, same time. It's a contemporary of Zalmoxes. We have got Bellabullock. Oh, no, that's not what we wanted. No, that's not what we wanted again. Release Dinosaur. What's up with me today? So this is Bellabullock, and you think, oh, it looks like a raptor, and that's what everyone used to think, but turns out it's a para-avian, so it's kind of a really basal bird. So it's more closely related to things like parrots and things today than kind of like raptors. And I think he's a pretty cool boy. So this guy's also from Romania. Lived in Hetzig along with Zalmoxes and Nukasaurus. And the scientific name is Bellabullock, or Bodrok, and the name Bela comes from Romanian folklore. There was a dragon named Bela, and I think that's a cool way to introduce a little bit. Oh, there you are. I think I lost you for a bit. I'm gonna grab some water. So that's kind of where the name comes from, which is pretty cool. So these guys got to about 1.8 to 2.1 meters long, including that long tail, and re-evolved a functional first toe to be able to use for climbing and stuff, and had a pretty novel body plan that was developed for living on this island. And happens a lot of islands. Evolution tends to go a little bit wacky, and this guy kind of evolved like almost 2 raptor claws, which is pretty wild and interesting. So it's believed to we don't know exactly what it was like, and we thought it was very like a dromaeosaur, like a velociraptor. It turns out it's much more similar to para-avians, so early birds. And we just kind of don't know. We thought that it could probably be like clawing and catching prey, but turns out it may be probably a lot more herbivorous, as with a lot of the interpretations, and had these adaptations for it, so broad pelvis and such. So he's getting big and being able to eat all sorts of different plants and such, not hunting. See, sometimes reality is a lot weirder than it seems. You think that this guy's just your run-of-the-mill dromaeosaur, but turns out it's a para-avian, so that's a early bird. And yeah, this guy is from the islands of Hetzig, so it's isolated, and also insular dwarfism happened. That happened to a lot of animals, including Nanuqsaurus, which was a sauropod that lived on these islands. It's also been observed in different times across Europe. Also, like in Germany, there's dinosaurs like Europasaurus, and that formation there in Germany of the late Jurassic, there's had a lot of dwarf dinosaurs. So it's not unheard of, and there's a couple of instances of these dwarf dinosaurs happening. And I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, a lot of these things suffer from like the popular founder effect, where a small amount of the founder of the population is usually like only a few individuals. And you can't really tell that from the bones, but I think that's just an interesting little tidbit about island ecology. And yeah, I think that just shows sometimes when you look into things, they tend to be weirder than they appear. So I think that's a very cool boy. Now onto the next animal. we're getting to our last sort of herbivore. Kinda, it's not really a herbivore. We've got Tibragotis. So now we're going really back in time. We have got to the late Silurian to the early Devonian, the late Devonian, around there. That's way before the dinosaurs. So this is not a dinosaur, of course. This is a sea scorpion, or the technical term is an Eurypterid. And these guys have been found all across the world. They've been found in Australia, the Americas, and Europe. And there's a few different species of them. These guys were among the largest of the Eurypterids. The largest one was a similar related genus called Dinosaurus. I believe that's how you pronounce it. They got to about 2.6 meters long, and these guys were kind of the large active predators. They were preying on things like cephalopods and small fish. There were early fishes, like the first jawed and jawless fishes were appearing around that time. The largest species is about 2 meters long, and there's about 17 valid species in the genus. So these guys are pretty big, and really just found all across the world. These are really cool bunch of animals. So these guys also had compound eyes, which was like a really big thing around the Silurian, Cambrian Ordovician Silurian. This is where kind of this big Cambrian explosion happened, where animals were evolving rapidly. And these guys also have these claws. If you look at these claws here, these were used to catch prey and had this paddle-like tail called a talson, where it was used to kind of almost like a whale to propel itself, along with these larger fins at the back here. And I think this is really cool, having an arthropod like this for Jurassic World evolution. I think obviously the Paleozoic, the time before the dinosaurs, is just as interesting as the Mesozoic. I just think it's so weird and wacky to have all these interesting animals before. We also had the first tetrapod ecosystems. We had lots of large animals like Arthropleura that took roles of large animals today, and I think that's just wacky and cool. And I'm just gonna watch this guy eat. He's clearly having a feed. Happy boy. Whoever did this did a good job, especially considering all the rigs he uses and such. I cannot blame you for trying this out, especially with no rig editing yet. Did a very, very good job. You should be proud of yourself. Just love to see these big paddles here and all the different on the carapace there, with the segments. Pretty hungry, aren't you? I think you're cool. Having your time to do your own thing. So now it looks like we're going to move on to the carnivores. So we're going to move on to some carnivores. Look what we got here. We have got Suzuki Tyranus, or Zook Tyrannus. I keep thinking Suzuki like the car, but we'll just keep going. So this little guy here is a early Tyrannosaur from the Zuni Basin in New Mexico. And if you guys know Zuni Basin, you also heard of Zuniceratops, which was an early ceratopsian. This guy's an early Tyrannosaur, so close relative of things like Tyrannosaurus and other like the Spinosaurus and co. So these guys, there's two specimens. They got to about 1 meter tall and about 3 meters long and weigh between 30 and 40 kilos. Both of these specimens were juveniles and believed to be about 3 years old when they died, based on looking at the bone rings. Oh, we got him missed out there. Let him go. We'll watch him eat. So these guys also may have had feathers. It's pretty likely that these guys had feathers, since they seem to be ancestral to tyrannosaurs, even though the larger tyrannosaurs may have lost them. And apparently it has a pretty large brain for its body size, so it's probably pretty intelligent. And well, even though there's not really a huge correlation between brain size and body size, but these guys were clearly smart enough to survive and did a good enough job to either evolve into these animals and survive in their environments, so can't fault them for that. So these guys, lived with Zuniceratops, also Northronicus, and a couple other animals. There's also an undescribed ankylosaur from the area, along with crocodilians and turtles. And It's kind of a really don't know where exactly it fits, but it's still a very important find to tell us about how dinosaurs evolved and a great opportunity to learn. And I have to say, it's not too bad. I like the feather pattern on it. I like that. I kind of like that. Did a good job. We're going to move on to the next guy. We have got another Tyrannosaur, something a little bit more derived. We have got Nanuqsaurus. I like those sounds. Ooh, like the hiss. That's really nice. So let's see him make his way through here. He's probably going to go through there. So Nanuqsaurus was a tyrannosaurid theropod from the late Cretaceous, and this guy is known from the Prince Creek Formation of Alaska. So you guys think, oh, Alaska is pretty cold, but at the time of the Cretaceous, the world was a lot warmer than it was now, but there would still be frosts and also like the days would have been shorter since of the hemispheres. Usually at the top and the bottom of the world, days can be longer and shorter, and it's pretty interesting. But these guys seem like they did pretty well, even though it wasn't as cold as it was today. These guys got to about 5 or 6 meters long, which is about half the length of its relative Tyrannosaurus rex, and estimated to get between 500 and 900 kilograms. So that's a pretty big animal, almost a ton, the size of a buffalo. So these guys have a particularly shaped ridge indicating that it was related to Tyrannosaurus. And these guys were quite thick and robust. It's kind of a later Tyrannosaur where they really got thick and big to deal with the prey that they were eating, including like ankylosaurs, ceratopsians, and hadrosaurs. And this guy lived about 70 million years ago in a subcontinent, Laramidia, which was part of the Americas. And believe it or not, the lack of food might be the reason it was so small, but they believe it may have evolved these smaller size compared to animals like the Spletosaurus and Tyrannosaurus to survive better in the cooler climates. But that might be. But in contrast, we have larger troodontids from the more northerly areas. So it's very possible that there could be a correlation there, but it's kind of, you just don't know. And these guys maybe have also had larger eyes to better deal with the conditions of the low lights. So it's actually pretty weird, because it's one of the few dinosaurs we have, like dinosaurs like Amoxisus and Pachyrhinosaurus, that have been known to live at these altitudes. So clearly there was enough prey for it. Also the troodonts, they got 50% larger than their more southerly counterparts. And the thing that I'm really happy about this is that they put feathers on it, which is kind of likely if you think, if you look at the phylogeny and showing that dinosaurs like Tyrannosaurus ancestrally had feathers, and this guy kind of lived in a slightly cool environment. Kind of like this interpretation. It's not just white like a polar bear. That's kind of a meme. I think he did a good job with this one. Should be proud. We're going to move on to the next one. We've got another pretty famous dinosaur. This one's done by Jagged Fang Designs. We all know and love them, don't we? We've got Concavenator. So this guy is from the early Cretaceous and is a Carcharodontosaurid. I don't know why I said it twice. But this guy is related to things like Carcharodontosaurus and Giganotosaurus. It's an early relative of them. And what makes it really weird is it's got this little weird hump going on. And we don't know if there was some skin between there or missing fossils. And it just looks really, really weird. But I still think it's cool. So this guy got to about 5.8 meters long and had that weird crest. We also know that it had evidence potentially of quills on its arms, so that's a pretty cool interpretation. It really could be artifact of preservation and maybe some scratches, but evidence of Kornovs is potentially there, so I think that's pretty cool to consider. And these kind of structures, like feathers, have been seen on Coelurosaurs and Tianulong and Pterygotus, so it's very possible that it could have it through ancestry. So this guy is also from the late Cretaceous, so about 130 million years ago, of Spain. And I think that kind of makes it more interesting, because Spain is a very interesting place in terms of evolution of dinosaurs, and especially some of the Jurassic stuff was quite similar to North American stuff. And yeah, it's a pretty cool animal, I think. I really like how they did the patterns of this guy. I like this. I've voiced this my opinion a lot, but I'm not really a huge fan of blue on dinosaurs. It's such a rare color in nature. But I think this guy looks nice with that hint of blue. It really brings contrast of the animal, and I think it looks quite nice. So this guy was obviously a larger predator, kind of just eating what I can. And it's an early relative. It's closest relatives that Eocacara and Neovenator. And also related to things like Acrocanthosaurus, and later down the line, Tyrannotitan and Giganotosaurus. So it's a very early little guy with some pretty big cousins. And I think he's pretty cool as he is. And yeah, it's time to move on to the next guy. We've got one from Wheat now, my friend Wheat. We have got a big man, Sora fagenhax Maximus. Now, the validity of Sora fagenhax is very much in question, because it's very similar to Allosaurus, and we don't really have any adult Allosaurus, so it's very, very likely that this guy just may be an adult Allosaurus of whatever species, Jamersoni of Religious or whatever species. But this guy got pretty big. They got to about 10 meters long and lived in the Morrison Formation, which is very famous for all these big dinosaurs, Allosaurus, Stegosaurus, Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, and things like that. So these estimates be between 10.5 to 13 meters long, to 3 metric to 4.5 metric tons in weight. So these guys aren't too dissimilar from Allosaurus, might even just be Allosaurus himself, but there's taxonomy drama, and plus, paleontologists, they like to split things. But we may have evidence. We don't really know what the situation is. We just need more fossils. That's always the situation. More fossils, more fossils. So this guy got pretty big here, and would have lived about 146.8 million years ago, around the Oxfordian. That's kind of the more separate. And these fossils are similar to age of things like Solmhofen limestone in Germany and the Tenneri Formation in Tanzania. So if you look at these species, they're kind of very similar to species that lived in Tanzania and Europe. Like if you compare Brachiosaurus, you've also got Giraffatitan in Africa, and then you've got Lusatitan in Europe. So it's really interesting to see, because that would have been a pretty recent split. So you have animals that are very similar and very similar ecologies, but they are still separated by time, since the continents were just splitting apart at that time and starting to go their separate ways, which I think is pretty cool. And I really like how he did this. Like if you compare it to the Allosaurus already in game, I really like how he made it smooth and changed the texture. Looks like a lean and mean machine. And I quite like that he didn't put anything on it. Looks really nice. He did a good job. Wheat always does a good job. I really like to see more mods from him. He's a cool dude. Same with Jagged Fang. Jagged Fang always does a good job. And also, I just want to say to everyone who makes these mods, do a good job. And just keep going. Just do what you enjoy, and I'll be happy to talk and review about them. I really enjoy the work you guys do, and I really enjoy making these videos. And last but not least, we're going back to the Morrison again. We have got another Jagged Fang design creation. And we've got Torvosaurus. This is the alternate pattern that we have here, and I think it's a pretty cool boy. So this is based off the specimen that is Umarca rex, which was lumped into Torvosaurus, and it's a big animal, about 10 meters, 11 meters long. And it's kind of a similar situation with Sora fagenhax. They believe it sort of may have been a new genus, but then they found, oh, it's just a giant Torvosaurus. So Torvosaurus is known from North America, Germany and Portugal, England, Tanzania, and possibly Uruguay. So pretty global distribution, which is pretty interesting. And as I mentioned before, if you look at this guy, there was different species. There was Gunnerai. Well, I need to change this again. Did he stop the roll? So this guy would have been worldwide. There was one species, in fact, named Gurnii, which is named after the paleoartist James Gurney. And he's a very famous paleoartist, and I really love his work. And there's a couple other species, like Tanneri, this is the one this is meant to be. And there may be other species in different parts of the world that just haven't been named yet, or just lumped into different genera. Well, yeah, lumped into different genera, just not named. It's just kind of complicated, the taxonomy of things, but it's interesting and important, so we know what things are which. There we are, that's a little better. I just want to fix that. There we are. This guy looks pretty cool. Maybe we make them fight for the video. So the largest estimates of these guys put them about 10 to 11 meters long and about 3 to 4 tons. So pretty big animals. And these guys would have also lived across the world with animals like Stegosaurus, Miragaia, Lusatitan, Giraffatitan, Brachiosaurus, Sulawesi, and all these guys. Interesting thing, a little bit thinking about the eggs, is that we know that there may have been embryonic material attributed to Torvosaurus in Portugal. And these guys kind of just laid their eggs and just kind of dig a little hole, and may have abandoned it. They took like the sauropod route, or the turtle route, where they just laid a bunch of eggs and just left them to their devices. And it's kind of creepy when he sleeps with his eye open. But this may be different interpretation. There was kind of like really, really lots of eggs, and we don't know if whether they abandoned them or just kind of left them, but that's kind of general assumption. There's a thing called R versus K strategist, and one that's more a K strategist is something like an elephant that has very few babies but invests a lot of time and energy into them, and pretty much all of them survive into adulthood. And then you have animals like turtles and sauropods, where they basically lay lots of eggs. They don't really invest much time into taking care of the babies, if at all, and it's kind of just the lucky one survives. There's a very high mortality rate. But it does work for both, and there's a spectrum. You can have some that have slightly more babies, but slightly less parental care, but it just depends on the species. It's a spectrum, not a hard and fast thing. But this is a pretty cool boy, I would do say so myself. This is the alternate pattern. There's like another pattern where it has a lot more detail and a lot more white on it, but I just like this one more. Just something simple. Sometimes really less is more, and I believe that to a T. So what I think we're going to do now, we might get these guys to fight. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get these guys to fight. Let's go sandbox settings. Counterpart frequency, we go to maximum. Fly. And let's just have a little bit of fun. Let's see these guys fight each other. Oh, no. There we are. So they're going to go right at each other. So you can see him coming out, he's looming. So they're getting ready for a battle. Let's see if we can get a good look. I'm going to ignore that. So they're going to battle now. This probably would have happened in their habitat, because these guys are both from the Morrison Formation. Oh, Torvo gets a hit in. Did a good job. So these guys made just giant Allosaurus. These guys were top predators in the ecosystem, kind of similar to like lions, leopards, hyenas. There would have been many large predators. Another hit from Torvo. Many large predators in this ecosystem and a lot of animals to eat. So it's very rich and complex ecosystem the Morrison Formation was. There's a couple books on it I recommend, like there's Jurassic West, you guys can read that. And looks like Torvo gets the win. Ooh, bit his head. Ooh. Now he's down. Jeepers. So Sora fagenhax, or Allosaurus, does not deal with the might of Torvosaurus in this battle. But yeah, the cool thing about this, this would have happened in the real world is in the Morrison Formation. So I think that really makes that a cool little fight that we can do. So not very often these guys will fight to the death, but it's a Jurassic Park video game. What do you expect? But no, that came out pretty well. So I think this would be a good time to end this video. So yeah, it's really nice to be back doing these videos again and doing these Jurassic World Evolution videos. Also, I'd like to do a little bit of everything. So tell me if you guys enjoyed this video. I'd really like to hear your thoughts, and also make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you click on that little bell icon at the bottom there to make sure you get notified when you upload anything. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.